Hey beautiful people, this video is about how do we encourage innovation at work. Innovation isn't just about the culture, it's about the commitments. Does your company say it wants innovation, but it somehow inadvertently, almost in an unplanned way, punishes mistakes? Ever wonder why great ideas go nowhere? Innovation isn't necessarily about being smarter. A lot of times it's about having more trust and knowing who it is that you want to co-invent with. By the end of this video, I want to be able to help you see how you can unlock innovation at work by redesigning the conversations that enable innovation to happen. Really interesting thing about innovation is it tends to thrive where there are systems and practices for building and amplifying trust. Now, the reason why I say that is because when we think about innovation, and again, if you go into Google and you ask Google what is innovation and you look at the images section associated with that, it's all light bulbs. The light bulb was a huge leap forward for all of us. So was the wheel, and so were some of the other very kind of almost for our time fundamental innovations. But those innovations required one or a small team with a hierarchical person at the top of them having a knowledge about a very particular, somewhat small area of science. In our fields today, the science is getting so much more complex, and the work that we're doing is so much more multifaceted that we are really required to do a lot of interdisciplinary innovation. The depth of our knowledge in the science is so much deeper and richer than it used to be that one person can barely handle the amount of knowledge and understanding and experience they need to have in a very small, thin slice of a certain domain of human innovation or human science or human experience. And so what that means is that our capacity to be able to innovate now requires a tremendous capacity in terms of our ability to be able to build trust with other people, co-invent with other people, coordinate with other people, listen to other people, co-design with other people. There are a lot of other practices that we need to build in addition to our technical capabilities that really allow us to be able to bring innovation to the forefront. I refer to these practices as the execution layer when it comes to actually making innovation happen. In my book, The Innovation Mindset, I talk about these practices, and I talk about these practices as sustaining, supporting, and catalyzing innovation. Because if we are left to our own devices as engineers and scientists or researchers, we will focus on our own particular area. We need, if we want to produce innovation, to be able to expand way beyond that. And the only way to do that is through colleagues who have a similar level of depth in a radically different field sometimes than what it is that we are focused on ourselves. So if we don't have trust across an organization or across a team, we're not going to be able to create the space for the level of co-invention or co-design that we need to do in order to bring innovation to the forefront. One of the most effective ways I have found to do this is you're building a foundation of trust, but the easiest way to kind of get at trust is to begin to move away from trying to understand and even criticize or comment on an idea, and much more powerfully to be able to understand what matters in there. What is the concern that this is being spoken about? So one person might say, if we are looking to put together a team of people who can really understand the machine to human interface, if we're working in a autonomous driving or a robotic space, they might say, hey, wouldn't it be great if we actually brought someone in who had a deep understanding of the human experience side of pharmacology or of medicine? Sometimes what we'll do is we'll respond to that idea and we will shoot it down before we understand why the person is saying what they're saying. One of the most important things that we can do in our organizations, particularly when ideas are coming at us that what look like out of left field, is that we can actually begin to ask what's the concern behind that idea. So in this particular case, we'd be saying, why do you think that that would be relevant for what it is that we're trying to do here? What are you seeing that we're not seeing that you think that person would be able to bring to the table in a way that would be valuable for this group? I actually had that conversation last week with someone, and what I learned in the process, because my immediate response was, whoa, that's kind of really out of left field. But what I learned in the process was the discipline and practices that medicine has for understanding how human beings respond under stress, under pressure, in different circumstances, when they're well, when they're sick, when they're being controlled, when they're free. They have this huge body of work and practices that allow people to be able to understand what is going on with the individual human being as they are responding to some medical practice. That's not that different from how they might respond when they are driving an autonomous car, or when they are at risk on the road, or when they are under pressure or stressed and sitting in their car trying to get from A to B. And so the window, the lens that that person would bring could potentially be very valuable in that space. But an idea coming out of left field could be shut away, shut down, if I wasn't able to understand what was the concern behind it and what they were seeing that I was not able to see. So as you move away from what's the idea and the focus on the idea, and you listen to the concern behind it, and you listen to the opportunity behind it, or the interpretation or perspective behind it, what you can also do is you can encourage valuable offers. So now you've created a space of openness where people are able to say things that they think other people might consider to be stupid or weird or crazy. And what you can do then is you follow it through with asking them to make an offer. So in this particular case, it might be, that is actually worth 2 or 3 conversations. Will you line up 2 or 3 of these conversations and bring this other person with you on the team to go and see whether or not this is a possibility or a reality, or it's just impractical and something that we can't pursue. But what you're doing is you're opening up a space, and then you're allowing people to be able to make offers into it in a way that they can actually pursue some of their own thinking. And some of it might be a complete dead end, and some of it might be irrelevant, but some of it might actually be genius. So how do we create that environment that allows people to be able to step forward with ideas, follow through with offers, and deliver potentially real value, while also being allowed to make mistakes? When we think about mistakes, we think about people did something wrong, people did something stupid, people did something they shouldn't have done. A much, much more effective way to think about these mistakes is to think about them in terms of breakdowns. And I mean literal breakdowns. So if you're driving along in your car and your tire blows out, or something happens with your ignition, or something happens with your steering, and your car suddenly isn't behaving the way it should behave, and you're scared, and you're likely running a risk of either crashing into someone or getting crashed into yourself, particularly if you're driving under difficult circumstances. There's heavy rain, there's lightning, whatever it is going on. So breakdowns happen. And if we begin to think of the things that happen inside organizations as similar to driving along the road and your car breaks down, that is nobody's fault, unless you've just taken it to the garage and they messed up. But that is nobody's fault. Like, it's literally the bumper sticker that says shit happens, right? So when you think about this, think about it in terms of breakdowns are inevitable. They are going to happen. When they happen, it's not who we can blame, it's not who we can shame, it's how fast we can respond and deal with them. And the faster we get at recognizing them, anticipating them, dealing with them, and working through them, restoring the level of trust that we need, the more opportunity we create for innovation within our organizations. The more opportunity people have to be able to step forward and know that we're not going to shoot the messenger. We tend to be so focused on our metrics and our results that we reward the results and we don't necessarily reward the risk-taking or the initiative. As you look to encourage innovation in your team or at work, one of the important things to consider is, what do we do when people make mistakes? What do we do when stuff gets wasted? What do we do when that idea that we decided we were going to pursue about bringing in someone from the medical field into our own technical field doesn't work? They just doesn't gel. We can't make it happen. How do we put that down to a learning opportunity and us knowing a direction to go in rather than a direction not to go in? If we start thinking about the risks that people take, and we want to encourage them to take risks, but we want to encourage them to do that in a very judicious way, what we're doing is we are looking to create an environment where risks are okay, and learning from those risks is celebrated almost in a similar way to learning from the successes that we have. As you go through that process, remember that people stepping up and taking risks, if we can help them do that in a somewhat controlled, short leash kind of way, like the example I gave, okay, that's worth 2 or 3 hours of discussions or interviews. Let's get on the phone and find some people that we can talk to, or get on a call and find some people we can talk to. Creating an environment where people can have small controlled experiments that you're kind of responsible for in terms of the scope and the latitude is very valuable for people to be able to make mistakes in a quote-unquote safe environment. The last thing that I'd ask you to seriously consider is the importance of protecting the space for innovation to happen. If you look at most people's calendars today, they are running so fast. They have back-to-back-to-back meetings. If your team is doing that, there is no room for them to innovate. By the time they get to the end of the day on Thursday, even if you said you can innovate all day Friday, they are so burnt out and so exhausted, they are doing catch-up. They're triaging some of the stuff that they ran too fast with during the week. Your job as a leader in an organization looking to be able to encourage innovation at work is really also about the structural elements of creating space for innovation, creating space for new offers to happen, allowing for risk to happen in a controlled way that doesn't, burn your project and have that person leave because they are so disappointed with what they didn't manage to make happen. It's the structural elements are also super important. So think of innovation as something that needs space and time, and something that can produce incredible rewards and value for you as a leader in terms of your leadership growth, for you as a leader in terms of the offers that you can make to the rest of the organization and the value that you can bring, and the same for your team. As you look to build innovation as a practice for yourself and for your team or for your department, there's another video that I believe you will find valuable, which is how to encourage innovation in a team. It addresses the topic from a slightly different perspective. It'll just help expand your understanding of what's at stake here and hopefully help you build fantastic new practices. Let me know how it goes for you in the comments. I wish you the very best of luck with it, and thank you.